How many of you cycle at least once a week? Okay, at least twice a week. What about every day? Who cycles every day? And why do you cycle? You in the green mask. It's a very fetching mask. Why do you cycle? You like to cycle. That's a great reason. Thank you. Yeah, like to cycle. Yeah.
I like to cycle because I go around and see my surroundings and what is happening over here around my house, what is happening over there.
All right, awesome. Yeah, so you also a chance to like explore, see some of the local countryside. We've got another nice green mask. Yeah.
Because I enjoy a lot of cycling.
Because you enjoy a lot of.
Enjoy cycling.
Enjoy cycling. Yeah. Great reasons to ride. That's great. Thanks. By the way, ladies, the next question will be coming for you. I don't tolerate just a male-dominated environment, so. So it already sounds like that you're quite an active bunch, very well acquainted with a bicycle. I want to make you a bit more acquainted with my particular bicycle. But before we go on a bit more, put your hands up if you've got a dream inside your head, or something that you really want to do in your life. And you don't have to, it's okay. Like, I'm just interested. Okay. The boys are a bit more certain. And keep your hand up if you'd be happy to share that dream with everyone in this room. And you're welcome to put it down. It's quite a big ask. Yeah, go for it. Can we just close this door as well?
It's not going to help, the windows are open.
I want to be a better person in life. Like you see rich people such as Elon Musk doing some or the other kind of stuff. But I want to be like, let's just say 50% you and 50% like Elon Musk. So that I can be even better person in the world.
A good balance.
Amazing.
Because my dream keeps changing. Once I heard that he is a rich person and he does so much charity. He is not a rich person but still he is doing so much charity. So I want to be like you guys, but with something that other people see as a god or as someone that...
Guys, please, let's have some respect. Let's have some respect. You can chat about this afterwards.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. That, I think, is an amazing answer. I think there are a lot of qualities in someone like Elon Musk having that vision, that dynamism, that desire to try and change the world around. People who try and do things for charity. And actually what you said about your dream changing, that is absolutely fine and that is completely normal. And I think that's one of the things in life, it takes a long time and it takes difficult events to really work out what you want. And often it's in the challenges that you face that you realise actually what's important to you. So I'm going to tell you a bit more about myself now. It's been great just to hear a little bit from you. So I'm cycling from Bristol to Beijing on a bicycle. It's not just any bicycle. Can you tell me what is different about this bike? Yeah. It has 2 seats, absolutely, yes. It does have 2 seats. It's a tandem bike. Yeah, anything else?
It has 2 pedals.
It also has 2 pedals. It's very useful because if you've got 2 seats and one person's not pedaling, then it's quite difficult. So it's also got 2 sets of pedals. Anything else? Yeah?
It has space to carry your luggage also.
It's also got space to carry my luggage, exactly. Okay, quick quiz. How heavy do you think the bike and the bags, and behind that little pink panel in the left-hand corner there's a trailer with a 3rd wheel. Put your hands up if you think it's, all of this setup together is less than 20 kilos. Less than 20 kilos, okay. Hands up if you think it's more than 30 kilos. Okay, oh, quite a lot of you, Safe hands. 40 kilos. Ooh, okay, so most of you think it's between 30 and 40 kilos. More, well, keep your hands up then, come on. It's not that difficult. Okay, what about it's more than 50 kilos? More than 50? Okay, more than 60 kilos? More than 70 kilos? More than 100 kilos? There's a few, okay. So altogether, this weighs 70 kilos. So we've got 70 kilograms of luggage on this bike with 2 seats, 2 sets of pedals. The other thing I would like to think is different, but perhaps isn't that different here in India, is that it's pink. Right? Like most countries that's unusual, but this is perhaps like the most brightly coloured country I've been through, which I love. And when you have a 70 kilo bike and 2 people on that bike, you basically got about 200 kilos. And I like to think about this in terms of like a baby elephant. I like to think that I'm basically trying to move a baby elephant from the United Kingdom to China. Baby elephant on wheels. So I just want to show you a bit more of the route. It's quite a wiggly route, it's not a straight line. How many countries do you think I've been through already? You can't count, I just want some guesses, yeah? 26?
20.
Huh? 20. 20. $80 countries? Okay. 30? More than 30? Okay. These are some pretty good guesses. I've been through 27 countries so far. 27 countries. It's taken me through France and Germany, Slovenia, Slovakia, Ukraine, Turkey, Georgia, Azerbaijan, Central Asia, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and the country before India, I went through Pakistan. And how far do you think this might be as a route? Yeah? 35,000 Ks. Yeah. Any other guesses? 25,000. 35,000. Yes. 100,000. 13,000. Okay. 30,000.
30 they're saying.
Thank you. Yeah. So some of you have been listening and saw the banner that was up before. Yeah, it's 30,000 kilometers. It's quite a long way. I've already come 18,000 kilometers to get here, and I'll tell you some stories from this journey later. But one of the things that makes this different and special is that I share the second seat of the bike with a lot of different people. So people from Germany, from Kazakhstan, from Azerbaijan, from Pakistan, from India. And this gives this journey a completely different character. And there's a very special group of people who I'll talk about later who cycle with me. So it's 30,000 kilometers, 30 different countries in total. And as Maj Gen Bakhshi said, we're trying to raise £300,000. 30,000 pounds would have been easy, but 300,000 pounds is much more difficult, trying to raise that much money for charity. So we've got big ambitions. But I want to tell you a little bit about myself to start with. Who here has a sibling? Okay, pretty much all of you. I don't know about you, but I really like this photo because it encapsulates how I felt sometimes towards my brother John. That's my brother John on the right. That's my dad, obviously. Because with siblings, you love them, but they can be like the most annoying people in the world, right? Yeah? And I sometimes like to think that in my head, when I was trying to hit that piñata, I was really imagining my brother's head right there. I mean, to be fair, there was a lot of chocolate inside that piñata, so I feel it's justified, this like expression of intensity on my face. So yeah, I grew up, I had a really wonderful childhood. I had, loving mum and dad, and a difficult relationship with John because he was the smart one. And when I was at school, he was brilliant at mathematics, and I was okay. I was fine, but compared to John, I felt rubbish. Probably about your age. I was 16 or 17 in that photo, and no one told me. No one told me that might not have been the best look. But it's fine, I rocked it. I thought I looked good. So as I was growing up, I was in school, I was studying for my A-levels, like biology, chemistry, maths, Russian, working hard to get do well in my exams, get a good place at university. And for me, like, the most important thing in my life at that point was probably like doing well, like studies. And my brother John, he'd gone off to Cambridge University, very, very smart guy, as I said, doing mathematics. And I got some good grades, I went to a great university, and then I went out, I graduated from university up in the north of England, Durham University is where I did my undergrad, and after that I went to Russia, which is a bit of an odd choice, perhaps. But I wanted to speak Russian, I wanted to improve my Russian language, and I was 24 years old, it was my first proper job, I was teaching English, I was making a group of friends, and I was doing a lot of running. And in May 2018, I did this really, really long race in the Ural Mountains. These are a big, big mountain range in Russia. And it was 50 kilometers. And I've never run that far before. And I remember starting thinking, I just don't know if I can finish. I'd done a lot of training, I'd done a lot of preparation. And I ended up running with this kind of scarily fit Russian guy who had like veins everywhere. I'm not quite sure how he ended up with that many veins, I didn't want to ask. But we ended up running this whole race together, and like for the first 30 kilometers, the pain levels were okay, but building. And in the last 20 kilometers, I was just basically in agony for about, an hour and a half. We managed to get to the end of the race. This Russian guy, Yuri, he outsprinted me, but we came first and second. So I was like in my peak physical shape. I was pretty sure that at some point, like, Sports Illustrated would be coming up to me and saying, can we do a photo shoot? That never happened. It probably would have been good though if they had, because maybe I'd be a celebrity, that would be one reason. But no, the real reason is at that time I also had an ache in my left shoulder. And, I very, very successfully ignored that ache for months. There's a lot of you here who do sport. If there's a match that's coming up, if you've got a big cricket match, or a basketball game, or badminton, and you've got like a little ache or a pain in your joints, What do you do, probably?
Stretching.
Stretching? Any other ideas? Yeah?
Or use hot water bath.
Oh, hot water bath, I like it. I'm coming around to yours, that sounds great. Okay, you sound like much more sensible than me, because when there's a race or a competition that I want to do, and I've got a little pain, I just ignore the pain, and usually later I really regret it, because I've made a small injury really bad. And so I had this ache in my left shoulder. It wasn't painful, it was just an ache, and I ignored it for months and months and months. About 4 months. And eventually I thought, well, this is stupid. It hasn't gone away, and I went to see the doctor in Russia, in this school. I went to see the doctor, and I said, you know, I've got this ache in my shoulder, what's wrong? And she said, okay, take your top off. I was like, about time, you know, I've been ready for this. That's why I do all the press-ups, all the sit-ups. And she said, no, I don't want to see the six-pack. I want to see your back. Okay, I'm taking, you know, this is my imagination. I've been dreaming about this. But it's, by the way, I'm getting these are jokes. You know, I absolutely, you know, if we're straying onto the side of impropriety, then I apologise. But I think we're all old enough in this room. So. She said, turn round and let me see your back. Let me see this ache in your left shoulder. And that is what she saw. If you look at that left shoulder, you'll see that something's really wrong. And she said, Bоже moj. Oh my God. And that was the first time I realized that I had a problem. That something was wrong. "48 hours later, I was back in the United Kingdom. I had a biopsy needle sticking into my back. I had a whole set of scans and tests done. And they said, come back in 3 weeks. So I came back in 3 weeks. And the doctors, they took me into the room, they looked me in the eye, and they said, Luke, you have cancer. It's not just cancer. That tumour in your left shoulder, it's already spread to your lungs. It's very rare. It's very aggressive. And we don't really know if we can treat it. That was the worst day I'd ever experienced in my life. I'd basically been told, you're not going to live for very long. You're going to die pretty soon. And I went home and I just like cried into the sofa. Because imagine that, like every hope and every dream in your life that you're gonna be successful, you're gonna have a good career, you're gonna earn money, you're gonna buy a house, you're gonna meet the woman of your dreams, you're gonna have a family. You might even have a chance to, drink whiskey in the evenings and play golf. All of that had been taken away from me. And all I could think about was how my friends were going to have that life, and for a few years they'd remember me. And then in 10 or 20 or 30 years, I'd just be some memory. And they'd be having all these experiences. And if I was lucky, they might remember me at a school reunion. So I was devastated. Absolutely devastated. What do you do in a time like this? What do you do when the last thing that you expect at 24 years old, when you're in the peak of your physical fitness, like a month before I'd run 50 kilometers, you're in the peak of your physical fitness, and you're told you've got a few months left to live. I didn't have an answer. But my dad did. And he knows me in some ways better than I know myself. And he knows how important exercise is to me, and boosting my mood, boosting the way I feel about myself. And he said, Luke, let's go out for a run together. We went out for a run in Bristol. There's this beautiful parkland. It was a sunny day. And he gave me some advice that I've never forgotten, and I share with everyone that I meet. He said, Luke, if you die in 3 months or 6 months, that is the worst thing I can think of as a father. That is awful, that is tragic. But there's nothing I can do about it. And there's very little you can do about it. But if you've only got 3 or 4 or 6 months left to live, what you do have a choice over is how you spend that time and what you do in it. You can't control how long you have, but you can control how you live in that time. And so I realized I had a choice. On one hand, I could be really annoyed and resentful and angry that this unfair thing had happened to me. Like, why had it happened to me? This isn't right. Why couldn't it happen to someone who was smoking or didn't look after their diet? But if I lived with that resentment, then I would just be unhappy for the final 3 or 4 months of my life. And that kind of sucks. Like, why would you want to be unhappy for the final bit of time that you have to be alive? But there is another way of looking at this, and that is that if I only got 3 or 4 months, then that time is incredibly precious. I want to do as much as possible in this time. I want to do everything I can to make this the best 3 or 4 months that I can. Even if I'm having treatment, even if I've got chemotherapy, I want to fill it with my family, with my friends, being outdoors, having adventures. And so that's what I tried to do. I also realized that I wanted to give myself the best possible opportunity of getting through the treatment. And even though I had a pretty small chance of surviving, I wanted to do everything that I could to be one of those people who survived. And do everything that I could to help myself. So this is me in hospital, on chemotherapy. feeling pretty disgusting, tired, sick. In chemotherapy, these chemicals literally poison your body. This is also me in hospital on chemotherapy with those chemicals poisoning my body. But this is me living with the attitude that I want to do everything I can to help myself. And one of the key things was being active. Keeping my muscles, keeping my body stronger, better able to withstand these chemicals. But then also the incredibly powerful side of knowing that you are helping yourself. And that is such an empowering step to take. So this is a situation I had no control over. I had no control over whether I was diagnosed with cancer, whether I had cancer or not. But I did have this choice about how I responded to it. And sometimes I was too tired to cycle. Sometimes I was too tired to do much more than go for a walk. But what I could do, I tried to do that. Oh, hello. Okay. Right. And of course, when you're going through times like these, who are the people that you need to rely on, that you need to have covering your back? Parents, yeah, absolutely. This is my mum. My mum was an absolute star, looking after me during treatment. And she had, not only did she have a son with cancer, but she also got the worst bits of me, because she'd look after me when I was sick and ill in bed, and then I'd have treatment every 3 weeks, and I'd have about 2 weeks when I felt all right. And as soon as I was out of bed, I would leave the house, I would go off to some part of the UK, I would be with my friends, and I would sort of leave my mum kind of in the house by herself, which is a bit, well, not quite by herself, but she said that she knew when I was feeling better when I started getting sort of frustrated having my mum around so much, which is maybe sounds familiar to some of the parents here. And maybe to some of you, we love our parents, but they're also quite annoying, right? No? Am I just the only one who feels this, or
No,
I'm just
no.
being honest?
No. We all
They
do.
aren't saying it
We
because
all
we are
do.
sitting here.
My dad, my friends. But I really believed in the power of exercise to really positively respond to what I was going through. And it is all about how you deal with the challenges. This is me 2/3 of the way, 3/4 of the way through my chemotherapy, when I started at the University of Oxford doing a Masters in Water Science Policy and Management. And actually this is one of the best things I could have done. It sounds like one of the most illogical things, that when you're going through treatment, that you will then start an intensive, rigorous academic course in a place that makes you wear stupid bow ties and chokes your throat. But actually it gave me an identity beyond being a patient, beyond having cancer, and it gave me a focus totally away from the treatment that I was going through. I was very lucky to get through the chemotherapy, the surgery, and the radiotherapy. And on the day that I was diagnosed, I realized that if I had the chance to do one more thing in my life, it wasn't buy a house. It wasn't even to climb the career ladder and be a, senior management consultant at McKinsey. What was that dream of mine? This question isn't rhetorical. You can answer it. Thank you. Yes, traveling around the world by bicycle. Because to me, this represented the most exciting, enriching, and fulfilling way of living. Because I would get to meet a lot of different people, understand different cultures better, understand the challenges that people face here. Like, your commutes. Like, what the hell? Like, this is crazy. About cycling through Amritsar? Like, are you kidding me that people do this every day? It's so intense. So these challenges that I have like very little idea about that people face around the world, trying to understand a bit more about that. And so, for me, that was the idea, to have not just good experiences, but very varied ones, very different ones. Not just the good, but the bad, and the ugly as well. Because partly, you find that if you stay in a 5-star hotel, there are never any stories to tell. It's like, oh, they brought the tea 5 minutes late. That was a tough time. Whoa. But when you go out of your comfort zone, when you travel and meet new people, you have some amazing experiences meeting people that you would never expect to meet, and I'll tell you about one guy in a second. But then you also face some really tough times, and some bad things happen, and generally the bad things are the best stories. Which is how I intend to make a living from now on, telling stories. Sorry, McKinsey. So, on the 1st of January 2020, I set off from my school, Bristol Grammar School, to cycle around the world. This is for suspense. There was just one problem. There was this thing happening in China. People were talking about this virus. I was like, wow. People actually, I did talks in the UK. I did about 6 weeks of cycling in the UK, and people occasionally, the people who'd like really read up on their current affairs, they'd be like, so, China, what do you think about the virus? And I'd kind of look at my phone and be like, oh right, there's something happening in China. And I used to make this joke that I'd be like, okay, well either by the time I get to China, we'll be on top of the virus, or it will be everywhere, and so it won't matter. Like, China won't be closing its borders because it will just be everywhere. It turns out I was more right and wrong than I thought. So, I got to Germany after 3 months of cycling, and in March, I was cycling in Bavaria. Bavaria is this beautiful part in southern Germany, green hills, rolling farmland, semi-mountainous, and in March it was pretty bloody cold. It was very windy, and I was cycling by myself because I was a bit of a loner, and I was just absolutely tired this one morning, and I said to myself, I just need a break. I'm going to cook myself some coffee by the side of the road. And I just pulled up by this farmhouse, and there was this pile of wood that sheltered me from the wind, and I started making my coffee. I have a burner, some petrol, burn the petrol, heat up the water. It's kind of like, it's camping, real camping. And this lady from the farmhouse, she like opened the window and she sort of shouted something at me in German. I didn't really understand. Eventually we managed to speak some English and she said, look, you can't be outside, like the police are going to catch you, there's a lockdown. And I was like, oh, right. And she's like, oh, are you making coffee? I was like, oh, just come inside, I'll give you some tea. And have lunch at the same time. So we ended up having lunch. And there was this long table, and she was at one end and I was right at the other end. So that was my first experience of the pandemic really hitting my ride. And 24 hours later, I was on a flight back to the UK. So I'd started the sort of my dream, the cycle ride of my dreams, and then 3 months into it, I had to go back to the UK. Now, long story short, I spent five months back in Bristol, and then I managed to restart the ride in August 2020, and I had no idea if I was going to be able to move beyond Germany, even into Austria. Remember back then how much uncertainty there was? Borders were opening and closing. It was kind of like like a musical chairs of like which country you could or couldn't go into. But I managed to restart, and I sort of cycled through Western Europe, through Eastern Europe, and I got to Georgia. And at this point, this very special lady came out and joined me. It's my mum. And what was really wonderful is the role reversal. Well, not quite reversal, but very much change. That when I was going through treatment, my mum, she was looking after me, and as soon as I was well, I'd kind of go off and do stuff without her. This was then an opportunity for us to spend some time together and welcome my mum into my world and share experiences in life together as a son and as a mother. And there was a very beautiful evening when we were up high in the Georgian mountains, and there were these polytonal singers. You know polytonal singers? It's a very beautiful, haunting sound where from your throat you make 2 or 3 tones at once. So it's very traditional music. And my mum and I were watching the sunset, watching the hills. And that was such a special thing to share with my mum, and particularly when, like a year and a half before, we, probably thought I wasn't going to make it, and my mum was just looking after me as I was lying in bed. So what a change. So I said there's a very special group of people who join me on this cycle ride. This lady is called Kate. Can any of you guess why Kate is particularly special? Yes, exactly. She also has cancer. So far, 20 people have joined me on the bike who've also been diagnosed with cancer. Because part of what we're trying to show on this cycle ride is what is possible with cancer. Because so many people, and myself included, thought that cancer was a death sentence. That it meant you're going to die soon, there's nothing you could do about it, you basically should lie in bed and wait for the inevitable. And I know cancer will have affected a lot of people in this room, families, friends of friends. It hits all of us. And that's where the amazing work of Cankids really comes in and does a huge amount to catch diagnoses early and improve the chances of successful outcomes. So that is what we're trying to do, is that it's not just me doing this cycle ride from Bristol to Beijing. It's actually a whole host of people showing what is possible with cancer, that you can help yourself, that you still can live your dreams. And for this reason, I've coined a term which I use instead of cancer survivor. Have you come across this term, cancer survivor? Just put your hands up if you have heard of this term, cancer survivor. Okay. Yeah, most of you. I really dislike this word. I really dislike this term. Because to me, it gives this like false sense of certainty that you have beaten your cancer and you can move on with your life and everything is good now. Whereas for so many people, and myself included, being diagnosed with cancer isn't like a, oh, okay, you look at me now and, you know, I've got lots of hair and, you know, good body, you know, the press-ups and the sit-ups are happening again. And actually, I don't know if I'm gonna, you know, I'm in remission right now, but I don't know if the cancer's gonna come back. I have scans every 3 or 4 months. And so when you live with cancer, you are living with uncertainty and you are facing challenges on a daily basis. And whether that's for me, like, I don't know if, I don't know how long I'm gonna have. You know, I've lived 3.5 years longer than I thought. Will I be here when I'm 30? Will I be here when I'm 40, 35? Will I have kids? Will I be able to see them grow up? There are still challenges and uncertainties. But on the other side, you can live with cancer. You still can do so much. And so I got this term, not cancer survivor, but canliver. You can live with cancer, but also living with cancer means that there are challenges that you face that other people aren't facing. And it's really important to acknowledge those. So, I'm a canliver, and I've shared this journey so far with 20 different canlivers, and Deb is another canliver. And it's been amazing to ride in India with a wonderful Indian who is also showing what you can do having had cancer. I'm going to tell you a bit more about this journey. How much time do I have, by the way? I've talked on a bit.
You okay?
Fine.
Fine? Okay. I will carry on and I'll tell you a couple of stories from this journey. So this journey has taken me through some wonderful places, and one of the constant themes that's been amazing is food, of course. I don't think anywhere has compared with India in terms of variety and vibrancy of flavours, but this was in Moldova. So the food has been amazing. I've had the opportunity to visit various different cultural sites. This was in Azerbaijan, or really at the start of the old Silk Roads. And of course, one of the best things about travelling and putting a word out there is meeting people, meeting a whole variety of people from around the world. And this photo was taken in Kazakhstan, meeting an amazing community of cyclists and runners and people who are passionate about living and health. And just this morning I met a group of cyclists here in Chandigarh. There have been some challenges as well. Before I tell you about some of them, I'd love to hear what you think the challenges might have been. I gave you a little, yeah, what challenges? A bit louder, sorry, the mask's in the way.
Weather conditions.
The weather, yes, absolutely, the weather has been very difficult. I've got a story about that. Yes.
Crossing borders.
Crossing borders, yes, absolutely. Particularly during COVID, so many borders have been very closed and it's been very, very difficult to keep moving. Yeah.
Change of language.
Change of language, yes. My Hindi right now is quite limited. Namaste. Kya hale? Is that right? I've got, you know, tika acha. Chai hai. That's an important one. That's also my Urdu. My Urdu is sort of a little bit more developed from Pakistan. Yeah, language is another difficulty. Anything else? Yeah.
Resting or stopping in between.
Yeah, so it's really important to take a break, to recharge the batteries, and sometimes that can be very difficult to find those places where you can recharge. And of course there are mechanical problems as well. The bike breaks down with depressing regularity. In Pakistan, I had 12 punctures. I mean, like, seriously, 12 punctures? Like, I think the problem was probably me rather than the bike. Not doing a very good job at repairing it, but some serious problems. So, the weather. The weather's been a challenge. How would you describe this photo? What words come to mind?
Cold.
Fog? Fog, yes. Foggy. What else? Less visibility, yes. Cold, storm, yes, yes. It was very interesting when I was in Pakistan and I showed people this photo. They said smog, which was pretty sad actually. And I think on a separate note, we've all got to look after this planet, and yeah, breathing in the fumes, and I know that this whole area has been affected a lot. It's going to be up to you guys to change that, by the way. You know, if you want your children to breathe clean air, then you're going to be the ones in government making these policies, and in the NGOs, and in the automotive industries, making the air and the environment here better in India. So the one thing you can't see in this photo is the wind. This was in Ukraine, literally 1 year ago. Like 1 year ago today, I was cycling in Ukraine. So it's in winter, it's cold, it's wet. But there was a 50-kilometer-an-hour headwind. So imagine trying to cycle into a brick wall. That's what it felt like. And this was from the first day. And I had about 700 kilometers to get across Ukraine. And I was going so slowly. There was this wind howling into me, and I was pedaling as hard as I could. I was going at about walking pace. Can you imagine some of these thoughts in my mind? And I'm like, this is just so rubbish, this isn't right, like I should be going a lot faster than this. Why is it taking me 7 hours to cover like 50 or 60 kilometers? Like, I should be going much faster. I'm pretty miserable right now. And I was wondering like if I would ever, like get to Mariupol. Mariupol was the destination in Ukraine. And like for probably 3 or 4 days, I was just really annoyed and miserable that I was making such slow progress, it was such hard work, and everything was grey. Ukraine, South Ukraine in winter is just grey and flat, very boring. But eventually I kind of realised that going at 10 kilometers an hour is okay. Like, I just had to accept that it was going to be slow, it was going to take me a lot longer than I thought it would. And there was one night, I was cycling late into the night, it was probably 8 or 9 o'clock, and it was pitch black. And I thought, you know, I can be miserable right now. I'm doing a really good job at it. I'm quite miserable. And it's very understandable that I'm miserable. But like, is there a way I can make this fun? And I thought, well, I could start like singing some of my favourite songs to myself and then making up my own lyrics. Have any of you come across the musical Les Mis, Les Miserables? Okay, it's a really great musical. I recommend you should just, next lesson, just screw the class and watch Les Mis. I'm not going to get asked back. Alternative teaching methods. Watch a musical. The other one you should be watching is Hamilton. We've got a few nods there. Yes, Hamilton. So I decided I'm going to try and make this as fun as possible. And I started singing to myself in the night. And that was a bit of a turning point for me that, okay, I can't make the wind go away. I can't make it any warmer, but I can control my response to all of these things. And eventually I did make it to Mariupol. And there I met one of the most inspirational people I've met in my life. And it's this guy, Gennady Mokhnenko. He's actually a Hollywood star, believe it or not. There's a film about him. It's called Almost Holy. So I hope you've got a notepad and a pen, because I'm giving you a reading list. I'm joking guys. But that's brilliant. Yeah, write them down. Write down Les Miserables, write down Hamilton, and write down Almost Holy. That is the most incredible response. So, Gennady Mokhnenko was a very special man. You guys scribbled?
Yeah.
Good, good. Gennady Mokhnenko was a very special man because he had 35 adopted children. And these children, they weren't, these children were from the streets of this Ukrainian city. They were addicted to drugs, to alcohol. They were children that no one else cared about, that everyone else had cast off as no-hopers. And in some ways, Gennady was this kind of holy vigilante, and he would literally sort of pluck these children off the street, take them into his home, like this sort of children's home and school, and he made a family out of them. And it was the most incredible thing to see, because when I met these children, they were basically like you. Like when I first met these children, I didn't know the backstory, and I was like, hey, these are normal school kids, they're great. Nothing remarkable. Like bright, sparky, ambitious, the signs of like, ooh, great school kids. And then I found out their story. I was like, oh my goodness. This man has worked magic with compassion, with love, with determination, and yeah, and a bit of the stick as well as the carrot. And so I travelled beyond Ukraine, through Azerbaijan, through Central Asia, into Kyrgyzstan. Do any of you know anything about Kyrgyzstan? Do you know where it is? Which countries border Kyrgyzstan? Yeah? Kazakhstan, yes. Sorry, say that again?
It's about near places where terrorism is going on and war.
So Kyrgyzstan borders China, Kazakhstan, has a long border with Tajikistan. It's right in the central part of Central Asia. It's also known as the Switzerland of Central Asia. And one reason for this is there are lots of lakes. The other reason for this is there are lots of mountains. This is me in one of the mountain passes of Kyrgyzstan. And at this point I was cycling with Carolyn. Carolyn is a friend from the USA. I met her in Uzbekistan, and she really likes watermelon. Who knew that you could do a watermelon delivery? But on a tandem, anything is possible. So what do you think the tough things are of cycling in the mountains? Going uphill, yes. Lack of oxygen, yes, you're absolutely right. I was climbing at 3,000, 4,000 meters. Lack of oxygen is a big problem and makes going uphill even more difficult. You know what's even more difficult than going uphill? Going downhill. Remind me how heavy this bike is. And with two people on it? Okay. Exactly, little elephant. Now I don't want to call Carolyn a little elephant, so let's just say, you know, it wasn't 200 kilos. Let's say it was 180. But regardless, we have this really heavy bike, and the hills in Kyrgyzstan, they're mountains. So you've got the Himalayas going through the north of India. We're basically going through part of the Himalayas, the very edge of the Himalayas. And you have some incredibly steep uphills and some incredibly steep downhills. And you know in traffic here in India, like the way that like motorbikes weave in and out of traffic, right? Well, the bends on the mountains in Kyrgyzstan is like one of those motorcyclists. They're constantly wiggling back and forth. So you're going from side to side. There aren't any straight downhills. So if you're on a very heavy bike and you're going downhill, what happens?
Speed increases.
Your speed increases, yes, and it increases very fast. And we were at the top of this pass and we started going downhill this other side. We'd done all the hard work, we'd thought. We'd spent 2 hours cycling uphill. And then we thought we could enjoy ourselves. And we started going downhill and our speed increased very, very fast. And we were overtaking these big lorries with these long wooden pine trees in the back of them, these like trucks with coal. So we were like one of the fastest things going on this road. And, well, we were obviously going too fast, right? We very quickly were going very fast. So what did I do? Yeah, the brakes. I was pulling on the brakes. And what happens when you pull on the brakes? Let's go into physics here. We're gonna do geography, we're gonna do physics, we're gonna have a whole, this is gonna be we've done musicals, this is a multi-curricular lesson right now. What happens when you pull on the brakes? Huh? Jolts, okay. Skids.
Inertia.
Inertia. Got some good terms coming in. So these are all good ideas, but we had so much weight that we weren't braking that hard. You know, the brakes weren't that powerful to sort of flip us off the bike. So that was fine, that wasn't a problem. How does braking work? I'm going to push you here. And by the way, I'm going to move on to this side, and now I'm going to talk to the predominantly female side of the room. Hi. Good, awesome. What happens, how do brakes work? Yeah?
The tires, the pressure on the tires from both sides so it stops working.
Yeah, exactly. It puts pressure on the tyres, and the thing that causes the stopping to happen is friction, right? Friction between the brake pads and the wheel. And what does friction create? Heat, yes. What happens when the brakes get too hot? They stop working. Right? When the brakes get really, really hot, you lose your braking power. They stop working. The brakes stop biting on the metal. So we're cycling downhill. We're going incredibly fast. And I'm pulling on the brakes. And we're slowing down. And I think everything's under control. Until we're going at like a sort of pretty fast running pace, like maybe 15, 20 kilometers an hour. And my hands are both pulling the brakes. I'm slowing down. Until something bad happens. Really bad. We stop slowing down. And then we start going faster. Even though I'm pulling on the brakes as hard as I can, we're beginning to pick up speed again, and we're going faster and faster down this hill. And it's this really steep hill, and we're taking one bend and then another. And actually, I can't tell you what was going through my head at this point, because I definitely wouldn't be invited back. Yeah. You can imagine it. You could probably even do the Hindi translation. I realised that there was no way of stopping this bike. And so I shouted to Carolyn behind me, "The brakes aren't working. We got to jump." Can you imagine being Carolyn? Can you imagine being Carolyn?
Carolyn with the watermelon.
So Carolyn is with this crazy British dude who's obviously crazy because he's cycling to China. That's enough of a reason to start with. And then he says, "The brakes aren't working, you've got to jump from the bike." Do you know what she said? She said, "When?" Amazing. And I said, "I have no idea, like, I've never done this before." Have any of you ever jumped from your bikes before? Oh, a few of you. I've no idea what you were doing, but I never have. So I moved off the road, and there was this dirt strip by the side of the road, because I thought that might slow us down, because it's, you know, bumpy and it's gravel rather than slick tarmac. And it just made us bump up and down a lot. And I was like, okay, I'm here. I was sitting like right here. And I was thinking, how do I get off the bike? I've never done this before. I have no idea. Luckily, Carolyn does know how to jump off a bike, and she did it with aplomb. So she threw herself off the bike to the right. That somehow pushed me off the bike forward and to the left. And we both skidded in this dirt, sort of rubble, gravel. And thank goodness there were no bones broken, we both got off alive. And we later went to the hospital in Kyrgyzstan, very kind of Russian style. We're covered in like blood and dirt, and like I still got the scars here. You probably can't see them, but there's some scars on the knees as well. And the Kyrgyz nurses, we said, "Oh, you know, can you help us? And they were like, they got out this clear bottle, and I thought, great, I've been needing a stiff drink for a while. Turns out it was hydrogen peroxide. They just poured it on the wounds, there's this hiss, and they're like, alright, off you go. Job done. There's still like dirt everywhere, and they're like, no, it's fine. And so Carolyn and I basically spent the rest of the afternoon like picking like stones out of our bodies. It was nice. But actually we'd got off really lightly. Because if we hadn't jumped off the bike, we'd have gone around the next bend. The next bend held a long straight, where we'd have got even faster and faster. And at the end of the bend was a hairpin. So if we hadn't jumped, it probably would have gone off the edge of that mountain. When I think about this story, I think about just how important it is to have trust. To trust the people around you, to earn that trust and not to abuse it. And also the importance of other people to help you when you don't know how to help yourself. So that was Kyrgyzstan. I'll bring us sort of up to speed, and I'll wrap up soon. This is going the beginning of Pakistan. This is the Kunjurab Pass, and through Pakistan I met some incredible, really lovely people. Unfortunately, the roads aren't as lovely as the people. And actually, most of the time the roads are fine, to be fair to Pakistan, but there's one stretch for about 100 kilometers between a place called Chilas and Dasu, where they're building some new dams on the Indus River. And it's incredibly bumpy. And within about 500 meters, the bags that are on the front of the bike, they'd bounced off, they'd caught in the mudguard, and they'd ripped the whole thing apart. And we were in a real pickle. And I know you like pickles here, but this wasn't a good pickle. Okay, those jokes are for free, some of them you have to pay for. And we really didn't know what we were going to do. And we stopped at a chai place, and they obviously also love chai in Pakistan. And we were trying to fix this. I didn't have any of the right bolts, I didn't have any of the right tools, and this man came up to me and he said, binding. I was like, what is binding? And he came back with some wire. And within about 2 minutes, he'd done this elaborate looping process and he'd fixed our bike. And this is one of those times when you think that you're not able to get any further, that you've got a bit of a problem, and then people around help. And that happened time and time again on my ride. And it's the people who really make this ride what it is, who are the support, who are the lights, the joys, and also the people who ask for clicks all the time. So when I was in Pakistan, I was fundraising for the Shaukat Hanum Hospital. But here in India, one of the partner that we're with is Cankids. And one of the things that was really important to me on this cycle ride wasn't just to help charities in the United Kingdom, but to help organizations that are making a real difference in the countries through which I'm going. And I think that's one of the reasons why Cankids is particularly special, because it is making a huge impact here in India. And I know that talk of catching cancer early and educating people about symptoms is not like the most interesting thing. Apologies, but I don't think people are always really sort of switched on. But I kind of wish that I had Cankids with me in Russia, or I'd read their advice. Because if I had, I would have caught my cancer much, much earlier. The work that Cankids does is incredibly important, and it gives people like Deb, like this guy Hamza, a chance to live when they might not otherwise. So, I've told you quite a bit about my ride. I expect most of you are bored, or just very keen to watch Hamilton, which is probably a better use of your time. Though I could sing it for you right now, and that would just do 2 birds with 1 stone. Has the point of this talk been to try and persuade you to do a cycle ride? Got a few nods. I'm afraid you're wrong. The point of this talk, as I see it, and you'll all take something different from it, is that each of us have something inside of us which is really precious and is unique. And that is a thing that makes you uniquely tick and happy and fulfilled. And that's going to be some combination of using your brain, talking with people, maybe physical exertion, making a difference in the world. Each of you has a unique combination of things that you love inside of you. And I think what is so important is that you follow that inner voice. And it will take you on different paths. You'll change your mind. You'll need time to explore and try new things. But so often in life, we have pressures from society, our family, our friends, the school, to tell you you should be this or be that. The hard way is the importance of following your own dream. And the only way I came to realize this is what the most important thing is that I was looking at having 3 or 4 months left to live, and I thought, what do I really want to do with my life? What do I really want to do with my time? And so often when it comes to your dream, or developing what your dream might be, and here it might be, maybe it's playing on the school cricket team, or setting up a society for inventing, or problem solving, dancing, rap, musical writing, whatever it is. No one will create these opportunities for you. No one will create your perfect opportunity. No one created this cycle ride for me. I had to work really hard, and I've had the support from a huge number of people to make this possible. It's so important not only to carpe diem, not only to seize the day, which implies when an opportunity comes along, taking it, but I believe to create your own opportunities. And there are always going to be challenges. And a lot of you will have faced some significant challenges already. But what's much more important is not the challenges that you face, but how you respond to them. And a lot of you might be looking right now at me and saying, okay, it's fine for Luke to live his dream. Luke has cancer. That gives him a license to put the normal rules of society to one side and be unusual and do his thing. But I'm 16, I'm 17, I'm in good health, I'm just gonna go with the flow. And I'll do what I really want later, because I've got time. Why not? It's the easiest thing to do. Who can remember the name of my brother? John, yeah. And he was a smart one, right? He went to Cambridge University, yeah. I got rejected from Cambridge University, by the way. Like, yeah, no shame. Genuinely. And John, he went on to do a lot of rowing. Then I realised my attitude had to change, because whilst at the beginning I would be beating him easily on the bike, he was getting better and better. Until that point came on a climb when our wheels were kind of neck and neck, and we were like racing to the top of the climb. And the inevitable happened, and he beat me. But by that point, our relationship had changed. We'd moved beyond kind of competitive siblings, and I was just really delighted to see how much he had improved. And taking pride in his success and knowing that we could have competition, friendly competition, that we both got a lot from, but we could still be friends afterwards. So John became a really good nationally ranked cyclist. And when I came back from Russia, had my scans, my tests, we would cycle together in Bristol, and he would wait for me. He would go at my pace rather than his. And I went into hospital for my first round of chemotherapy in July 2018. And at that point, my brother John, he was running in the hills in the Lake District, which is a beautiful mountainous, hilly area in the UK. He was doing that with some friends. They were having some sort of games up there. And I was in hospital for 4 days. 4 days at a time on chemotherapy. And on that final morning, my mum was in the room with me. And this is about 4 o'clock in the morning. And she gets a phone call. She gets a phone call, and she hears his voice. And she's told, your son John, he was running out in the hills, and he slipped, and he fell, and he died. John was 25 years old. And if anyone had asked you the week before who would be standing in front of you here today, it would be John. A lot of you will know of people who have passed away before their time. And none of us know how long we have to live. So don't delay living your dream. If you don't know what that dream is, that's also okay. That's absolutely fine. It took me till I was 24, 25 to find out what I wanted to do. But experiment, try different things, see what you're passionate about, see what excites you, and from the things that you realize you don't like, that is also progress. Part of life is working out what you don't want to do as much as what you do want to do. So, John would have ridden on this bike with me from Bristol to Beijing, if we were able. And the little I can do, but in some ways the most I can do, is share his story with you. So that whilst his life was cut short, yours might blossom as you go out into the world. And don't compromise, don't settle for being less than who you are. Go out, face the challenges, overcome the challenges, and live your dream. Thank you so much. There is now time for some questions. If that is there time for some questions? Okay, so we've probably got time for like three questions, I reckon. And if any of you want to follow this ride and keep up to date with the progress, then you can write on your notepads Bristol to Beijing, and you can follow on Facebook or Instagram or the website. And please do, if you want to share this amongst your friends and the wider school.
There's a question here.
Please.
Morning, sir. It's a privilege to have you here today with us. I'm Abhimanyu Pargal from Class 9C. And as we all know, cancer devastates one physically, mentally, emotionally, in so many ways. I'm curious to know, what are your strategies that keep you going despite all of these challenges? Thank you.
That's a really fantastic question. Thank you for asking it. I think it comes down to a mindset. Now, my mindset wasn't that I'm gonna do stuff to make sure that I live, right? There was no guarantee that I would live. But what I wanted to do was live in a way that almost I could die without regrets. That I'd known I'd done everything I could to give myself the best possible opportunity to live, and then also to enjoy that time. And then from that, a lot of things stem. So in order to give myself the best possible opportunity, am I going to be feeling happier if I get out of bed, walk to the end of the corridor and walk back? Like, will I be helping myself? Will I be happier? Probably yes. Will it mean that I live? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But for me, it's about having an attitude that empowers you and gives you agency and control over a situation. And I think that's just particularly important when there feels like there's so much which isn't your control. So as a cancer patient, you are measured, you are prodded, you are injected, you're told to, go to the toilet at a certain time. You kind of end up being almost less than a human. And this is a way of reclaiming your humanity. Exercise for me was really important. Not necessarily cycling in hospital, but just being as active as you can. And whether that means simply walking up and down the corridor 5 times a day, or whether that means going for a 5-minute walk or a 20-minute walk, it's about going to the edge of your limits, rather than just lying in bed. So exercise, diet, I think that's really important. Lots of vegetables, lots of fruit, lots of legumes. Cut out the sugar from your tea, from your chai, all those sweet pastries. That's what I would do, that's what I did. Not a popular thing to say here, I know. But that's why I'm saying it. And have like people who really care around you and want to support you, and that makes a huge difference. But caring doesn't mean wrapping someone in cotton wool and saying you shouldn't leave the house, you shouldn't do anything at all. It's about enabling people to do as much as possible rather than doing everything for them. Okay, second question. Yeah, do you have a mic? Or we've got a...
I'm Ahan, class 9. I had a question of all the countries you have traveled, which was your favorite and why?
Thank you for the question. Basically every country has been different and had a different personality. And so there have been, people in Uzbekistan been just, I was cycling across a 500 kilometer stretch of desert, and it was 50 degrees C, and I was sweating and I was drinking like 12 liters of water a day. I couldn't carry that much water with me, and there were like 2 villages in 500 kilometers. 2 villages. And it was basically lorry drivers who kept me alive and gave me water. So like, that is incredible in its own way, even though I sort of didn't really like the desert. But for me, the most surprising country was Azerbaijan. I loved it. Incredibly kind people, beautiful scenery, and a lot of culture and history. Very interesting geopolitically today as well. So, yeah, I'd like to think that some people's attitude has changed because they've also seen what can be done, and it's affected them very positively as well. Do you give me one final question, but from the ladies? Because there've been but one question here.
Good morning, sir. I am Megha. I want to ask that why did you choose cycling? Like, why only cycling?
Yeah, thank you for the question. For me, cycling is this amazing blend of being physically active, so keeping your body strong, keeping healthy, while still covering quite a lot of distance. So I cover like 80 to 100 kilometers a day. And when you're on a bike, you're not isolated or insulated like you are in a car. People can still interact with you, they can talk with you, and things go wrong on a bike. So you need to rely on other people. And that brings you into contact with many more people. So for me, it's a way of traveling in a very rich and interesting fashion. Whereas in a car, you're isolated, walking is too slow, and getting a flight is missing the point. So I think that's probably all we've got time for. Thank you so much. I wish you all the very best. Good luck. Have fun. And follow me on Instagram.